What would you do if your university degree, the one you'd poured your life into, was being threatened by one lazy, arrogant teammate? In today's story, the protagonist's choice is a masterclass in how to handle it. My university career was a marred one. But this story isn't about my personal issues. It's about how my first degree course came to a dramatic, fiery close. I was studying mechanical engineering at a highly ranked university in England. In my first year, I'd absolutely crushed a computing module, which was basically Python programming. I finished with a 98%, where a top-tier grade, a first, was only 70%. The only 2 marks I lost were for a single unclear comment in my code, a fact that became public knowledge among my classmates. This reputation put me right at the top of the class for programming. But it also meant I became the go-to guy for everyone's coding problems. Then, second year rolled around. Right at the start, we were told about a mandatory, year-long group project. We had a few options, but the most popular by far was building a competitive robot. Robots are cool. Competition is cool. What could possibly go wrong? We were split into groups of 4. I was in one. And from the very first meeting, I had a sinking feeling. Let me introduce the cast. There was me. A programming was named Liam. Then there were the 2 female members of our group. Let's call them Chloe and Amelia. They were absolute gems. True team players. And then, there was the star of our show. A rugby player we'll call Declan. Overseeing it all was our professor. A man we'll call Professor Albright. At our first meeting, we were meant to introduce ourselves and brainstorm ideas for the robot. Chloe and Amelia were upfront immediately. They admitted they didn't have much practical experience with building robots and their programming grades weren't the best. But they were more than willing to dive into the design process and handle the bulk of the tedious paperwork. I was skeptical at first, but I appreciated their honesty. Then, Declan spoke up. He casually mentioned that he'd done this exact project before. Every head in the room snapped in his direction. He explained he had failed the previous year and was now repeating it. This is critical information. I asked him directly if he knew his way around programming, electronics, and design. He gave a clipped, disinterested yeah. For the rest of the meeting, he was a ghost, remaining silent even when Chloe, Amelia, and I tried to pull him into the conversation. Eventually, the 3 of us agreed on a plan and delegated the initial design tasks using CAD software. Professor Albright had been clear, all design work had to be completed and signed off before we could even think about building anything. And every single member had to contribute. Our first major deadline was a presentation of our prototype design in a few weeks. I hammered out my portion of the component designs. Chloe and Amelia worked together flawlessly, producing their CAD work like a well-oiled machine. I was blown away by their teamwork. But my good mood evaporated when I saw the complete and utter lack of anything from Declan. His missing part was holding up the entire project. We took our case to Professor Albright, explaining that one member's inaction was bringing us to a halt. But he wouldn't bend the rules for us. Frustrated, I took it upon myself to secretly do all of Declan's work, just to make sure we didn't fall hopelessly behind. Come presentation day, we had nothing to show. Not a single component. Not even a block of wood. Professor Albright lambasted us. The disappointment and anger on his face were palpable. But Chloe, Amelia, And I had come prepared for this. They had printed evidence of all the work they had completed. I had my evidence too, their work under their names. My official work under my name. And a separate file containing all of Declan's responsibilities, which I had also completed. The professor took us outside. A grave look on his face. He told us that every year, there's one problem group. And he always makes the same offer: split into two smaller groups or stick together. Chloe and Amelia immediately refused to split unless they could take me with them. Professor Albright then looked at me. I told him the evidence spoke for itself. In a move that stunned me, he rejected the evidence, claiming that anyone could just put their name on a piece of work. This revealed the professor's critical flaw at that moment: a rigid adherence to protocol over substance. A blind spot that would inadvertently force me to build a case so undeniable it would shake the entire department. We walked away from that presentation with a failing grade, knowing that only a flawless final result could save us. With the project weighing so heavily on our final mark, we were in serious trouble. This is where the revenge begins. After we pleaded with Professor Albright again, he finally allowed us to move forward with the build phase. Despite Declan's lack of contribution to the design, this was my moment. I informed the professor that I would be thoroughly documenting every meeting, all correspondence, and every submission of work. Then, an idea hit me. My friends in computer science were always talking about a version control system the university had called Git. For those who don't know, Git is a software that tracks every single change made to a project. You bundle your work, add a comment about what you did, and push it to a central repository for approval. It creates a perfect, time-stamped, and author-stamped record of who did what and when. It's a collaboration tool. I discovered that while it was mainly used by the computer science faculty, any student with a university email could create a project on the system. I went back to Professor Albright. I asked if we could use this software to manage our project. He was intrigued. That's the first time anyone suggested it to me, he said. But if it helps you keep on top of things, go ahead. I'm interested in how this turns out. That evening, I sent a message to the group. I told them I'd found a way to manage all our files without endless emails and asked them to message me privately so I could show them how to use it. Chloe and Amelia messaged me right away, and I introduced them to the wonderful world of Git. Declan read the group message but never contacted me. I laid down the law with the girls: every single thing we did, every change to a file, no matter how small, had to be committed and pushed to our Git repository. A single sentence changed? Commit it. A whole page of code? Commit it. The documentation didn't stop there. Every group meeting was arranged via Facebook and confirmed with an official university email to each member, stating the time, location, and purpose. I also convinced the girls that we should hold each meeting in a different room on campus. At the start of every meeting, I insisted we take a silly group selfie on my phone. In the middle of the table, I placed a small dictaphone to get an audio recording of the entire discussion. The meetings were always the same: me reporting progress on the robot's development, Chloe and Amelia reporting progress on the documentation, and Declan, well, he was rarely present. He only showed up to 2 meetings in total. After each one, I'd email the whole team the meeting minutes, the group selfie, and the audio file. After a few of these, Chloe and Amelia pulled me aside. What's with all the pictures? And why do we have to be in a different room every time? they asked. I like the change of scenery, I said with a smile. And memories are always nice. They gave me a quizzical look but let it go. When it came time to actually build the robot, the workload fell almost entirely on me. I was supposed to handle the software, but I ended up doing the vast majority of the electronics and physical labor too. Declan showed up to the workshop exactly once, to cut a crude base out of a piece of wood. Every time I went to the workshop, I took a selfie outside. I'd also grab a random student inside, take a selfie with them, and ask for their university email to send them the quirky memory. I took photos of the robot's progress before and after every single work session. We were falling dangerously behind. The situation became so dire that I started skipping my other lectures and seminars just to get the robot finished. As one commenter later pointed out, my other modules suffered terribly because of the amount of work needed to stay on top of this one project. I knew my own grades were tanking. I was doomed to fail the year. Realizing this, I told Chloe and Amelia to stop trying to help me with the build and focus on their own studies. I would handle the project. They needed to save themselves. By some miracle, on the day of the final presentation and competition, our robot won the tournament by a razor-thin margin. Declan, who actually showed up, breathed a huge sigh of relief. Professor Albright pulled us aside, congratulating us and admitting he never thought we'd pull it off. We all smiled and laughed, including Declan, who had no idea the storm that was about to break over his head. After the competition, every student was given an anonymous form to evaluate their teammates. We had to rate each person from 0 to 4 on participation, quantity and quality of contribution, and teamwork. I gave Chloe and Amelia solid 4s across the board. They later told me they did the same for me and each other. We had all agreed to give Declan solid 0s. Though I gave him a 1 for participation since he technically attended 2 meetings. In the comments box for him, I wrote just 3 words: see evidence. I handed the form directly to the professor and walked out before he could say a word. Then, I went home and opened my laptop. It was time to build my case. I opened the Git repository webpage. Every single contribution was listed with the name and email of the person who made it. I screenshotted every last one. I opened our Facebook group chat. Every message. Every arrangement for a meeting. Every private message from the girls asking for help. Screenshot. Every workshop selfie. Every selfie with a random student. Every before and after picture of the robot. Every group meeting selfie. All inserted into a single Word document. I compiled all the audio recordings of the meetings, along with the emailed minutes and the selfies I'd sent to other students, into a single, massive zip file. Then, I waited. A few days later, the email I was expecting arrived. Professor Albright wanted to see me in his office to discuss the scores I had given my colleagues. On the day of the meeting, I went to the university library and printed the Word document. It was hundreds of pages long. While it was printing, I went to our Git repository and generated a special link that would grant visitor access. 2 hours before the meeting, I composed an email to Professor Albright. Please find attached audio recordings of each meeting, emails I have sent to people I've taken selfies with, and a link allowing you into our Git repository. I attached the zip file and hit send. I bound the mountain of printed pages together with treasury tags, placed it in my backpack, and walked to his office. I knocked. When I entered, I saw Chloe and Amelia looking grim. And Professor Albright wearing a look of pure annoyance. "You've sent me worrying scores for your colleague," he started. "Do you understand that these scores will reflect the mark he gets for this module?" We all nodded. "So you understand," he continued, "that the scores you give to Declan will mean he gets next to no marks. That he will fail the module outright and cannot pass the year?" We all nodded. "Did you know that Declan is repeating the year?" We nodded again. This was the moment Declan had sealed his own fate. All those months ago. His previous failure wasn't just a backstory. It was the key to his expulsion. "Do you know the university's policy regarding retaking the year?" he asked. He explained that, barring extraordinary circumstances, you cannot repeat the same year a third time. If you fail a second time, you're out. He pulled out my evaluation form. "It says in your comments, see evidence. But you forgot to provide any." He looked at me. "Before I ask why you're giving him such poor scores, do you have your evidence with you?" A massive smile spread across my face. The poor professor, just trying to help who he thought was a struggling student, looked completely bewildered. As one person commented on my story later, the professor must have been absolutely astonished and gobsmacked by the sheer volume of documentation. I slowly slid my backpack off my shoulders, opened it wide, and pulled out the document, hundreds of pages bound together. I placed it on his desk with a heavy thud. It was thicker than the textbook sitting next to it. "I have sent you an email," I said calmly, "with a zip file containing the audio recording of every meeting, and a link to our Git repository so you can see the contribution log for yourself. But before you look at that, please take a look at this." I explained the nature of every picture in that document. The workshop selfies proving my attendance. The dated photos of the robot showing incremental progress. The selfies with other students, all of whom could be contacted via the emails I'd also provided. And finally, the group selfies. As I explained their purpose, to prove who was and wasn't at each meeting, in a different, verifiable location each time. An audible "oh" came from one of the girls as the penny finally dropped. When I finished, there was a dead silence in the room. Professor Albright just stared at the pile of paper on his desk. After what felt like an eternity, he just looked at us and said we could leave. A couple of days later, a new email arrived. Evidence accepted. Scores accepted. Initial mark for final project, 80%. Mark will be adjusted due to unbalanced contribution. In the end, Chloe and Amelia did great. Their project grade bumped up to a solid 2.1. And they were thrilled. I managed to pass most of my other modules, but my focus on the project had caused me to fail one too badly to continue to the next year. I wasn't surprised. I knew I was doomed. I dropped mechanical engineering and transferred to computer science, where I belonged. And Declan? By failing the module, he failed the year for a second time and was terminated from the university. Ultimately, this story is a lesson in accountability. When the system is unwilling to act, a mountain of cold, hard, undeniable evidence becomes the only language it understands. So, here's my question for you. Have you ever been pushed to a breaking point by a lazy coworker or teammate? What extreme lengths did you have to go to just to get the job done? Let me know in the comments below.